Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we're overtaken by nostalgia. Because if there's one thing the NBA gambling scandal has done, it's remind me that the mafia has still got it. I'm your host, Negin Farsad. And was I the only one that, sort of loved the kind of old-timey feelings of the mafia still doing crimes and excited for whatever movie starring Robert De Niro this would result in? I don't know. That's what all I've been thinking about, but I'm sure for people who are legitimate sports fans, it means more to them in a negative way. Anyways, we're not going to talk about that, because instead today we're going to talk about live stream shopping, what it is and should we want it. We're also going to talk about dining in dark rooms, and it is as mysterious as it sounds, and MAGA's dating scene in DC, which is a whole story. On the political front, we'll look at Trump's third-term musings, the remodeling of the White House, and more. And oh my God, today's panel, you guys. We are joined by one of the veterans of this show. He's been a steady hand in the Fake the Nation verse from so many years ago, I think from the very first year. He has a newsletter called New Music for Old, which, by the way, was just featured heavily in Spin magazine for how wonderful it is. He's got albums that stream wherever you stream albums. He's got a special that you could see on Amazon. The man is just an incredibly productive and brilliant and funny man. It is the wonderful Christian Finnegan. Hey, Christian.
Thank you, Negin. I appreciate your calling me productive. That's very generous. Let's say generous.
Well, when I get to say a lot of the things that people do, it does, maybe it helps you look at yourself in a new light, Christian.
But when you're 109 years old, it gives a lot of time for things. Yes.
In between. So I should add to your introduction, in between those projects, he had a lot of downtime where he did nothing, and
yes,
he should feel ashamed. Okay,
yes,
there we go. That's a complete introduction.
Speaking
Let's
of the
move on
Catholic
to our...
in me.
Right, of course. The other person on the panel is here for the very first time, and I'm so excited. He's a writer. He's a filmmaker. And what I'm most excited about is his debut novel that's coming out next year. It's called My Own Kind of Person. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about it, it's like a debut novel that's in the YA genre, which already, guys, YA genre, the best. And it's about a young stand-up comic who can't talk about his feelings in the right way. Or I'm not describing that correctly, but either way, just that combination of words made me immediately want to buy his debut novel. He's the wonderful Tim Manley. Hey, Tim.
Oh, hi, Negin. It's very nice to be here.
So wait, he's a stand-up comic. He's a teenage stand-up comic?
He's a teen stand-up comic. He's grown up on Long Island and does comedy at the club that's behind the McDonald's across the street from the airport.
Oh, that sounds...
Which is where I did stand-up when I was a teen on Long Island.
Oh, God. It sounds horrifying and delightful at the same time. Folks, before we get into the show, I just want to remind listeners that they can support the show by going to patreon.com/Negin Farsad for as little as $4 a month, which is less than the cost of a latte because tariffs have increased the cost of coffee. You can support the show, get 2 bonus episodes, and then there's more tiers after that, more bonuses, there's mugs, there's t-shirts, I mean, you name it. Also, for the cost of $1 a month, you could just support the show and get nothing extra. Just the knowledge of support is the thing that we offer at the $1 tier. So go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad for all of that. And let's get into it with topic number 1, culture. I had no idea, but there's a phenomenon called live stream shopping. It's like QVC, but for TikTok. And the biggest player is a company called Whatnot. They just raised a bunch of money. And that company is already worth $11.5 billion because a lot of the big investors are just betting on live stream shopping as the next big thing. With the slow decline of cable, I mean, I guess... Is QVC something that we were like, oh, yes, I mean, no to cable, but man, I wish there was more QVC in my life. I don't know. Is there an appetite for this kind of thing? And I don't know. I sort of thought that appetite was still everyone's elderly aunt. But I guess live stream shopping is skewing younger. I don't know. What do you think?
QVC was on all the time in my living room when I was a kid. My mother loved QVC.
All
And one of
right.
our big purchases was the Mrs. Prindables apples, gourmet apples on sticks covered in chocolate and candy. So you'd get these around Christmas. And they had so
Yeah.
much candy on them, you had to like cut a slice off, basically rendering the stick like pointless. I
Useless,
guess, just
yeah.
for the thrill of the stick. And I loved Mrs. Prindables apples. I mean, a live stream shopping sounds horrific to me. I hope to never see it. I don't want to ever
Yeah.
interact with it. It sounds like the worst thing on the planet. But I do have very fond memories of those candy apples.
Can I
So-
say that you just said for the thrill of the stick, which I believe is the title of your next YA novel.
Yeah.
For the
That
thrill
is
of the
that is a pure adult. That's not why. That's
It's going to get
real
steamy.
adult.
That one's over.
No, that's right. That's right.
There's a-
That's a
Tough
real
to walk
bodice
the
ripper.
line.
Right. What
one's
is
over
it?
the line.
Isn't 50 Shades of Grey the steamy spin-off of something that was wholesome?
Twilight.
oh,
Twilight.
right.
I think
so
50
maybe
Shades of Grey started as Twilight fan fiction.
Oh my
right.
gosh.
So maybe this is your own steamy spin-off of your
Yeah.
own wholesome.
There's no eroticism in teenage stand-up. I'll tell you right there. There's
No.
that is not fertile grounds for
For
romance.
neither the
That's
girls or
true.
the boys. It's just there's none. There's none.
or even adult
Great.
stand-up. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Oh.
I used to do a whole bit about, and oh my God, I should revisit this bit, but it was about like when you're a guy in stand up, some woman in the audience will agree to fuck you. You know what I mean? Like they'll just be, you know what? You were funny. You look like a troll meets gnome, and it doesn't matter because I will still have sex with you. But when you're a woman who does stand up, the agreement is like, will you join my what is that called? Like Magic the Gathering game. Like those were the invitations for the women. They're never like, there's nothing cool that comes out of it. You're not like a woman in stand up and you're just like getting penis being thrown at you left and right.
Yeah, it's a real reversal.
It's so awkward.
Because
Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
like a woman doing stand-up is really the only thing she can do that would make men not have sex with her. Like in every other realm, a woman can get laid at her leisure. But stand up, it's like almost like you get to understand what like a dude feels
Yes.
like the rest of the time.
No, exactly. And I remember like one time we were doing a show at Beauty Bar. I think you did that show, Christian. And the guy, I was pregnant. And a man hit on me from the audience. It came up to me after the show, and all of the comedians, like 5 comedians, were just encircling me as this man made overtures, and because it was so shocking, because it doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
And I was visibly pregnant. It was a very interesting situation. He had a fetish, clearly. Christian, can you talk to me?
Yes.
We got so off track. It
Far
doesn't
flung.
matter.
I apologize.
But I do want to hear you talk about QVC for the modern age.
Here's what I don't. I mean, I'm like everybody. I'm not a huge Instagram dude, but when I am on Instagram, it is invariable that I will click on some ad for some dog-related product or some grippy socks or
Yeah.
some random gadget that seems to have solved what I assume is going to have solved every problem in my life. But I feel like if I would never open an app with the decision that I wanted to just look at like shopping. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing about Instagram and TikTok is they kind of slide it in. You're like, oh, I want to check in, see what my friends are doing, or the content creators that I like. And then you're kind of in the tent, and that's when they get you with the ads. I can't imagine being like, you know what? I just want to be a consumer for 30 minutes straight, and I just want to absorb advertisements. So I don't.
Right.
Maybe no one's ever accused me of being a financial whiz, but I don't see the point in that.
Yeah, this is where we need Tim's mom to weigh in on the feelings that precede turning that on. Because I don't understand it either. Even when QVC was on, I couldn't even get sucked in like at all. I just was like, nah, nothing for me, thanks. And the interesting thing is, I do think it's like it's like a gene or whatever. It's like whether or not you have the BRCA gene. It's like also like, do you have the gene for online shopping? Because apparently the average user of their app will watch it for 80 minutes a day.
Nuts.
Which I was like shocked by that number. Tim, do you have any insight on your mother's internal feelings?
Both too many and not enough, I would say, generally. But I wonder if part of it is a little bit like how people like to watch unboxing videos, right? Like, or how kids like to watch videos of other kids playing with toys, you know? And in a way, I don't really get it. But you make me realize that there's a restaurant bar near us where the owner will frequently post videos on Instagram of him just like eating their food, like a spoonful of trout chowder, right? And then he'll just be like, wow, this is really good. And whenever he does that, then my partner and I will look at each other and be like, maybe we should go get some trout chowder. That looks really good.
Right.
But
yeah.
to Christian's point, we did not go on Instagram looking for like trout chowder. It came upon us. So.
And actually, I would say, I think that's right, because the only time I get sucked in for a few seconds is when the thing happened in my algorithm. And then once I find myself getting sucked in and being like, oh my God, I totally also get that Korean beauty serum that will take care of like this whole face. I immediately, once I see that I'm having that feeling, I immediately scroll away because I'm just like, oh my God, these fucking assholes. They almost did it. They almost did it. Not to this guy. And it's interesting because I think, here's what I would pay for. And maybe you could already do this without having to pay. I don't know. Listeners, let me know. Is there like a setting where it's like, do not show me anything that's purchasable? Is that? Do you guys know if that's like a setting anywhere on Instagram or TikTok? That's
doubt
what I
it.
want.
I
want
doubt
that setting.
they would let you do that.
I would
There
pay
should be.
50 cents a month, which is a lot for an app that you essentially should probably be easy to make, where it gets rid of all the things.
You know,
can
that
buy.
it's funny that you say that, because I actually do feel like that is the next wave of untapped tech, which is tech that prevents you from using tech. You know, is sort of you know, like for instance, I really miss iPods just because I want to be able to listen to music in bed. And I need to be able to stream it because I don't have everything in MP3 form anymore. But I don't want to be able to scroll and go online. Do you know what I mean? So it's like some sort of tech blockers, you know. Or but yeah, that is an interesting idea. But I seriously doubt that they would let you do that unless, like you say, you're paying an extra premium add-on every month to.
Right. I know. It only leads to problems, but like, oh, fuck everybody. Okay. So I think that's a no from all three of us on this thing. The three of us will just watch that company get rich. I guess is what we'll do.
This would be exhibit 312 of me being like, that'll never make money. And then being like, oh, I guess so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's move on to another thing that people might make money off of. Although I don't know, this one's interesting. It's matchmaking. Well, this is what I wanted to say. Is that like the sweep of dating has been so interesting. It's like matchmaking began dating, begat dating, begat like swiping, begat the backlash of swiping, which was sort of like that speed dating situation. And now we're in a world where people are trying to figure out ways where people come and do IRL stuff, and what is it that they're going to do, and how are they going to connect, and is it going to be awkward? And the newest thing that is out there is called the Feels. It's more like a singles mixer than anything else, and singles are like put in a dark room that employs touch-based technique, which includes lots of eye contact and gentle, non-erotic touch. So, I don't know, does this kind of dating, how does it sound compared to the alternative out there?
I don't know. I can just say, you know, when I was in my my 20s, or even through, say, when I met my wife, I'm not sure that there was anything known as non-erotic touch when it came to women, that men will eroticize any touching when it regards to a woman. Like, not just because we're horny, but I also think that there's this idea of like, if we're holding hands, if we're touching, then I should be upping the ante, or does she want me to up the ante, or like, should I be taking this to a new level? Like, the touching is not just a sensation to be enjoyed to be enjoyed in and of itself, unless it's like post-coital. Do you know what I mean? Like, unless it's like cuddling after the fact, I feel like there's a horniness in dudes that is not kind of like, oh, this is nice for what it is, and I'm just going to enjoy this for what it's always like, oh, we're touching. What's next? Where is this going? You know what I mean? And so I'm assuming since the feels is created by a woman that they have a lot of, techniques in place to keep this from going to weird, gross places. But,
yeah, and also there's like a conversation about consent and stuff like
Sure.
that. They're like it sounds like pretty safe, but I would also like to go ahead and speak on behalf of all women when I say that when there's this being a singles environment, or like let's say we're like in my 20s, I was at a lot of bars where a lot of these kinds of things happened. Those were the feels, and in those situations, if like a guy bought me a drink or something like that, and there was like a minor touch involved, I also registered that touch, wondered where it was going, wondered if I wanted it or not, thought about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It like I think both parties in these situations are like reading a lot into all of it. So sorry, Tim, what's your take?
I don't, oddly, I'm not entirely opposed. When I think back to when I was dating well over a decade ago, because I'm married and have been in a relationship for over a decade. But so in my 20s, at some point, I paid money to go to like a Valentine's Day pajama singles event at the Bell House in Brooklyn.
Nice.
And I got changed into pajamas in the bathroom there. And then I assume just sort of walked around drinking and looking at people and then went home, right? And like didn't know what to do. I definitely went home alone, and so maybe
wearing the feety pajamas may not have been the right
it
option.
shouldn't
for
have
you. It's
been.
probably,
It shouldn't have
with
been the
hood
button
and-
up to the neck. Yeah, it shouldn't have been that. It was a mistake I made. But maybe if someone had been like, and now look into the other person's eyes for 60 seconds straight, I don't know. It's sort of like it creates like a forced intimacy with someone, but
Right,
maybe
because
that works.
Which, Tim, you bring up a great point, because the person who created this is also a psychologist, and she has people do little exercises like that, staring at each other, or like, something where they use their finger to like touch the person, but like over the clothes, whatever. Anyway, I don't know why this is making me blush so hard, like just talking about this. But I think one of the things that I find a little embarrassing about it is that it sounds a little woo-woo. Like there was the use of the word energy came up a couple of times in an article that we read about it, and I'm like, I'm just like, can I get it up for you or not is like the main, you know what I mean? Like energy is like I don't know if I can handle that kind of
and also
terminology
it's like-
for that setting.
And also, it's like I don't know. I want to know like how long do these one-on-one interactions take, because I feel like one or both of the parties may know very quickly that no thank you, like within maybe a second, meeting the person, and then it's like, okay, now we have to sit and stroke each other's arm for the next 20 minutes in the dark, like I don't know, is there any sort of raising up a flag or something, and then I just
Where you're like, not this guy,
like that.
no thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe then you would bond with someone over making fun of how ridiculous the whole thing was, and then
Ooh, and then you
could
fall
be
in love.
together, right?
You're the
And then
ones
you
who
fall
are
in
too
love.
cool to do the thing, and then
So
That's
right,
right.
so
Yeah.
maybe the walls that you put up in the beginning start to crumble because you're staring so deeply into someone's eyes. I could just, the idea of doing that, I just wanted like immediately, I'm like so hot, I can't. It's like this is like embarrassing to me. I'm so embarrassed by. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about something almost as embarrassing as this dating concept, which is the state of American politics. Hey, let's take a quick break. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. Guys, the political scene. Since Trump has taken office, we as a country and we as a podcast have been concerned about the idea of a third Trump term. And in recent weeks, Steve Bannon has been out there casually chatting about a plan. And there was that one meeting they had where there was like hats. I think it was with Hakeem Jeffries about the shutdown, maybe. And there were hats that said Trump third term, Trump 28, I think that's what it was. And Trump is now officially chatting about it, about having a third term. He's not opposed. Is this something you take seriously? Or, Christian, is this just another way for us to all be distracted from the Epstein scandal?
No, I think you have to work from the assumption that he's not going willingly. I think you have to operate from that assumption. And I think you have to operate from that assumption because he didn't go willingly the first time, and he was way less empowered than he is now. And not only just Trump, there's a lot of people who are, the chickens would come home to roost very quickly if Trump was out of office. The Stephen Millers, the Tom Homans, the Bovinos, these idiots who would very quickly be in some sort of legal peril if Trump were to be out of office. I would say even by certain Republicans, and so I think that there is going to be a groundswell of his inner circle who will make him run a third time, whether he is physically able to or not. So it's like, I try to not get cynical about it. I try to remind myself that the Grim Reaper is undefeated. And so hopefully the decision will be taken off of his plate. Well, it's not even a decision, though. I genuinely think if he leaves willingly, I will be surprised. But I think to assume that we're just going to go back to a normal political system after this is naive to the point of being irresponsible.
Tim, the other sort of theory out there is that he is a lame duck president, and putting this kind of thing on the table just psychologically changes things for people where they're like, oh, I'm not dealing with a lame duck president. I'm dealing with someone who might, as an octogenarian, be in office. What do you think of that theory?
I mean, unfortunately, I feel like that probably will work for a lot of people. And I feel like the thing that really frustrates me about it is that if you get upset about the idea of him trying to stay for a third term, which would obviously be illegal, anyone can just say, oh, he's just joking, right? He's just trolling. I think yesterday Mike Johnson already now is saying, oh, he's just trolling. It's a big joke on the left, right? And I find that so frustrating because it's like whether you agree with what he's saying or not, the idea inside this joke kind of becomes this thing that we all kind of get used to, right? And if you try to push back on it, you can be kind of casually made fun of and said like, you don't get it, like you're just being kind of a baby about it. He's just joking. But slowly I feel like what starts off as a joke ends up kind of like actually changing the way that people think because they just kind of get used to it. And that's why I'm opposed to comedy and jokes. And
it's a good policy.
See, I find it so frustrating. I'd be so interested what both of you think, right? Because it is this like, okay, if he had said, oh yeah, I'll do a third term, and everyone just said, great, he'd be like, oh, cool, everyone wants me to. But instead, he can say, I'll do a third term, and then if people push back, they get to say, oh, he's just joking, just trolling, right? So, like, you're never serious. You're never held accountable.
Right. And actually, to that point, I'm going to read something. I don't know where we read about this. Oh, so we read a little piece in the Times about this. And one of the things that Maggie Haberman said in that piece, she said, quote, even when Mr. Trump presents something as a joke. So this was from her writing at another time, like recognizing his patterns, because she's probably like the foremost expert on Trump. She said, even when Mr. Trump presents something as a joke, the idea he suggests often becomes socialized by his supporters, both those in office and in the right-wing media. The concept then often takes on more weight, including for Mr. Trump. So maybe we should stop talking about it, is my question. Right? Like, am I part of the problem? Right here, Fake the Nation. Fake the Nation, handing Trump a third term.
No,
entertaining the notion.
I don't think we should stop talking. I don't think we should talk about it in a sense of like, gee, will he or won't he? He can't. Like, that's what we need to be saying. No. Like, we need to be talking about it, but we need to be talking about it in terms of, no, you cannot do that. And we
Right.
need to make it very clear. And obviously, it's like, who the hell knows what will happen in the midterms, whether there be anything resembling a free, fair election. But, if the Democrats do take power in the House and, God willing, the Senate as well, probably not likely. But the first thing that would need to be done is some sort of reification of the fucking rules. Just like, here's what's allowed,
rules.
here's what's not allowed. We affirm that you will not be running in 2028. Not will you decide you want to. You will not. And I feel like until that happens I'm just operating from the assumption that literally it will be, I don't want to say what I think will happen. It will not be peaceful.
That's delightful.
Sorry.
The other thing, in terms of like the next person in office, I really asked, like the next time I think Democrats have all three branches, I think they have to sit down and do like a doge for all the words, which is not the right metaphor, but like there needs to be a department that's like, let's just go ahead and take a look at all the rules and just make it clear so that we're not operating on norms anymore. We're operating
Fuck
on
norms.
just like words on a paper, And so, because one of the weird, stupid thoughts I had was like, how like the House Speaker can just be some guy, like it could be your plumber, like it doesn't have to be someone that's actually like in the house or whatever. They like figured out this like weird loophole. I was like, oh, what if one day they're like, and it can be an AI chatbot. That's the House Speaker is an AI chatbot. Everyone shut the fuck up. That's what we're doing. It was never specified. You know what I mean? Like I want the word human to appear places. Like I just want all that stuff. Let's go ahead and clarify, let's just clarify. I think you're right. So, okay, I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. I do think the other fun thing about all of this is that the extent to which it probably drives J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio crazy. They are ostensibly front runners in what would be a 2028 race. And so the idea that their boss is continually just making them suck up to the boss over and over and over to just like, please, I hope you quit.
Can I just make one prediction real quick?
Yeah,
I had this prediction when Trump got reelected, and I'm still holding to it. The big war on the right is going to be between J.D. Vance and the Trump kids, Donald and Eric. That will be the sort of who gets to adopt the MAGA mantle post-Trump.
Donnie Jones recommended J.D. Vance, right? Aren't they bros?
It won't last. It won't
what
last.
if they have
Nothing lasts.
very dramatic if they had a falling out? Very dramatic.
Yeah, I think, because Vance has got all these billionaires behind him. They're going to want to see some return on their investment in the form of him being president. But then you have the Trump dipshits who feel like they are owed power now that they've seen what their father has done. And I think that there's going to be a real schism in that little world. And I don't know who wins.
And is Marco Rubio like an afterthought? He doesn't figure into much.
Oh,
Is that? I mean, because that's my kind of feeling. He doesn't
poor
figure
Marco.
I know, and he's trying so hard.
He's
at
really
completely
trying hard.
abandoning all his own
he's working
ethics.
really hard. I thought so, right? I thought he used to have ethics a little bit.
Yeah.
But
He once. I thought so. I thought so too. Well, let's look at the New York City mayoral election. I heard. So I had the some numbers that were 164,000 people turned out Saturday and Sunday alone. The number has kind of like I think almost doubled since then of early voting. So a lot of people are turning out. The rate of turnout is 5 times higher than the first weekend of early voting 4 years ago when we elected Eric Adams. Demographically, these first few days seem to be a lot of Boomer and Gen X voters. So now they're scaring everyone that this is very bad news for Mamdani. Christian, correct me if I'm wrong. Were you are an early Mamdani supporter? Is that right?
I am and was and am and I did canvas last night, guys. I don't want to.
Okay.
you.
Excuse me.
You can
Okay.
brag about that.
Feels
Little
good, feels
democracy
good.
brag over here.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. I knocked on probably 100 doors, spoke to maybe 3 people. That's what canvassing is, basically, is a lot of
I
nobody
find that
answering.
very heartening.
Oh yeah,
To hear you share it, not that only 3 people answered doors, but to hear you share it to me, I feel moved that you're doing this work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like if they've gotten me involved in sort of knocking on doors and talking to people willingly, then you know that shit's serious, because it's not what I want to do. I'm not the kind of person who wants to do that in general. But I think that, first of all, I am one of those boomer Gen X people who voted early, so it doesn't necessarily bode poorly for Mamdani. But I think that there's always, in the last 2 weeks of the election, there is always going to be an attempt to, like, hey, it's getting close. Who knows? I mean, the media will always do this, even if they don't have a horse in the race. They will always be like, oh, things are tightening. Who can say what's going to happen? And, it's almost impossible to do that right now with if the polls are even remotely correct. If he's up double digits, it's really hard to, go the horse race route. But I do wonder if some of this, like, hand wringing about who's turned out early is part of that. I don't, I've been wrong twice before. I thought Hillary was going to win. I thought Kamala was going to win. I clearly don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But, I think everyone's going to run through the tape. I don't feel like people are getting complacent about it. And I feel like people are excited. There's sort of an Obama effect thing that's happening, where I think that people kind of understand that they want to participate in the meme of voting for Zoran. You know what I mean? That it's almost like Barbenheimer. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to participate in the cultural event, which is the election of Zoran.
Right.
And so hopefully that holds. We'll see.
Tim, what do you think?
I think if canvassing lets one brag and feel good about canvassing, I think that's beautiful. If going out and voting early from Mamdani makes you feel like you've got a good selfie and you get to be part of this big moment, I think that's beautiful. I think whatever works, and I think it is pleasant, to say the least, to be even mildly inspired by a political leader. It is a relief. It's I don't think I realized how much I needed it, to be able to listen to someone talk and go, oh my God, I actually agree with him. And I didn't realize, and I've never heard people say some of these things, him talking about, I was hearing him talk about, how so many people are unhappy with the Democratic Party. And I was like, yes, why aren't more people acknowledging this? Seems like it would be pleasant to just say people are unhappy for these reasons, and so we can do these things to try to address that and be better. And I'm like, how lovely to hear someone speaking what to me reads as very honestly.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't feel like it's hiding corruption. It doesn't feel
No.
like, he's got a secret address in New Jersey. I mean, it just is like and I will say, it's just what's really interesting. I mean, as someone who's sounded the alarm on Islamophobia in the past, I will say I posted something about Zoran the other day, just to and I started my post. It was a reel, which you can see on all the stupid fucking platforms. But anyways, and I started by saying, we just started early voting, and I get it. Mamdani may not be for you, but maybe he is, and maybe blah 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 blah. It was what I would call a positive post. It wasn't browbeating people into supporting him. It was none of that. And some of the reactions I got, I'm just going to read one of them off my phone right now. One person said, "I will personally come after this bitch if Mamdani fucks New Yorkers." Just a little example of some of, when other people were like, he doesn't, he will preside over the greatest danger to Jewish New Yorkers, whatever, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because, again, I think I've said this in the past, but I've literally never had the luxury of even thinking about what is the ethnicity of that person vis-a-vis my ethnicity or my religion or whatever. So this is the first time I'd be voting for a Muslim for anything. And because for years I was never is this person safe for Muslims? It was actually never a question that I could ask myself, because most of the mayors in my coming up phase of becoming an adult just presided over this mass surveillance of Muslims in New York City. So I was I was like, well, they're all into the mass surveillance of Muslims. Let's move on from that. You know what I mean? It was never
Right. It's a
I'm
given.
just like,
But what are they going to do about the trash?
what are they going to do about the trend? Right. So it's just interesting to me. I just find it wild that any ethnic group thinks that this one man would be dangerous for their ethnic group. I guess I've never made that calculation as a particular.
I think a lot of
ethnic
people
group here.
too are. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think a lot of people are using anti-Semitism as a fig leaf is not maybe the right word, but as a cover for a lot of the things that they're against that they don't want to say out loud as much, which is the financial stuff, which is they don't want to sound like I'm not some Wall Street asshole, but I still kind of believe that New York needs billionaires and we shouldn't be giving people free shit. So I'll say anti-Semitism because that has sort of the imprimatur, I can never say that word right, of credibility and seriousness, that of being a serious political thinker. And also I think there's a generational thing, and there's some sort of anti-Bernie, I think it's still the ghosts of 2016 coming back, the anti-DSA, also just anti-young energy in general. I think there's a lot of people who have kind of learned to depend on the New York political machine as sort of this is what politics should be. And so any sort of upstart is seen as uncredible at least, dangerous at worst. But anti-Semitism sounds better.
There's right, or it's just like easier. There's one, I remember watching the debates or whatever, and he talked about the idea of having a $30 minimum wage. And even my own husband, who I think is a great guy, was just like, whoa, $30 minimum wage. What are we talking about here? And as listeners know, I worked for the government for a time. I was a policy advisor. And one of the things I remember learning about when I was getting my master's degree in public policy was that, in public administration, was that, that these kinds of figures are aspirational figures. When you're working with Albany, when you're working with a city council, these are not the figures you land on. But they're an indicator of what you're striving for. And so they're just kind of like, in an ideal world, yes, $30 an hour. But in the real world, what does that mean? What is 30 in real world numbers? Like what is it in dog years? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like how I feel like I view some of those policies that might seem outlandish to some people. I view as just like an indicator of like an ideal scenario. And what are the incremental steps that will get us there? I think he would be committed to making those steps.
It's every football team wants to go undefeated. Nobody's expecting to win every game, but you don't say that. You're like, we're going to win every fucking game,
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good goal.
Right. Well, let's move on quickly before we end this topic to the tearing down of the East Wing. Tim, I don't know. He didn't ask for permission. He just tore it down of the East Wing of the White House. He's planning to build a 90,000 square foot ballroom. This is kind of along the same lines. Is this something that matters? Is this a distraction? Presidents make adjustments to the White House. Maybe it's not a big deal. I don't know. What do you think?
It's probably all those things, right? It probably matters. It is a distraction. And also, I think if I'm optimistic and we say that in 10 years we have a democracy, which if I'm being optimistic, we'll say that happens. I think what bums me out is that now we'll have this giant ballroom there of just this like proof, like this memory of like, remember what happened? Remember you let this guy live in this building and like, look what he did. And so that actually is what struck me in the past day. Just like now there's this big evidence on that building, this big scar or whatever that'll last there. But maybe that's a good thing. It'll be like for like many years, people can point at it and be like, look what you let happen. You let this giant ugly room get built here.
Yeah, I know. It's depressing.
Yeah, I mean, you saying that actually, it's like a giant graffiti tag, essentially. It's basically, it's making yourself indelible and being impossible to separate you
Yeah.
from that building. You know.
Right. It's this is arguably ridiculous, but I was just reading the long New York Times piece about sex trafficking in Los Angeles. I apologize, it was pretty brutal, but I was reading it, and in one of the minor details it mentions is that a trafficker would tattooed his name to one of the young girls' necks, to sort of like claim like you work for me or whatever, and it feels somewhat like this president is like, well, now here's my stamp on this building, and you can't forget that I was here and I did this here.
Oh God, that's
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to bring up
I
what
know.
a
No,
what a
but that's
horrific,
it's
detail.
honestly a perfect analogy, and it's specifically
Yeah.
perfect for this person.
and really fucking depressing. All right.
I'm
Can
so
I-
sorry.
I will say,
Okay, final thought from Christian.
I just I watch these live press conferences that he does in the White House or in the briefing or whatever, and I always just have fantasies about like what if we had reporters who fucking not even just had balls, but just like weren't just there's so many slow pitches over the plate that they just let go by because they feel like it would be beneath them or whatever. But I have little fantasies about questions I would ask, and when he was sitting in the Oval Office showing the pictures of the ballroom. He had the big giant blow ups. I wanted to be like, excuse me, sir, I was just curious. In the building of this new ballroom, does it present any issues to me that the drawing you're holding is incredibly ugly? Like, does it? Does that present any problems that you have terrible taste and that what you're showing is disgusting looking?
Well, it's so funny because they already have to remake the rose garden from a concrete nothing to like a rose garden again or whatever. Like all that's, I mean, they have to like, they'll have to go back and like try and class up the joint, you know what I mean? Remove some of the gold, add
Yeah,
some.
we need to bring John Taffer in there.
Maybe they won't finish. Maybe they won't finish in time, and it'll just be this ridiculous unfinished thing. I don't really know.
Right.
There'll be billions of dollars hoovered up by some subcontractors, which will eventually find its
Right.
way back into Trump's
I
pocket.
know. We
mean,
didn't
this
even
is
talk
gonna be
about the
biggest
source of the
boondoggle.
funding. The source of the funding, which amounts to currying favor with the president from a bunch of different places, but apparently taxpayers are not paying for that, which I guess is nice. But don't worry, there is grift and corruption
Yeah.
afoot. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the show. And we are back with topic number 3. D.C. is a very liberal city, but nevertheless, the influx of MAGA has created an interesting scene there, particularly with respect to dating. Now, they might be MAGA, but they're still looking for love or still looking for someone to submit to their form of love. We read a piece in the Washington Post about this when one woman talked about what she was looking for, and this is what she said. She said she's looking for a man who loves the Lord, who's actually genuinely likes going to church, and could, quote, provide and protect emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those things. And then she added she also wants them to be a fit, athletic man she could go on runs with. But so far, she has found that the MAGA men in town are, quote, not fit, workaholics, and not taking finding a wife seriously. So does that surprise you, just for the anecdote of this one woman who's, a Christian conservative who's actually been unable to find a guy, even though theoretically her prospects have increased?
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, sure.
So I didn't want to jump in.
No. Let's see. And I think. So I try very hard to imagine someone else's experience, right? So I can understand their point of view. I think that's a reasonable human thing we should do, right? And so I was thinking back to when I was dating, and I'm bisexual. I've been married for a while, but I can remember back in my 20s when I was dating, and if I went on a date with a girl and I told her I was bi, she just thought I was gay. And if I went on a date with a guy and I told him I was bi, he just thought I was definitely gay, right? And so I can sympathize. I can sympathize with a conservative in a very liberal city who might be trying to go out on dates. And if you go on a date with, say, a liberal, they might think that you're a fascist when you identify as, someone who just wants a a very powerful singular president who everyone should follow. And if you don't, you are a baby, and the army should come in and make sure to enforce those laws. And these are reasonable things, and God-loving, and she wants him to be God-loving and fit. So, I can sympathize that it would be frustrating if you wanted all those things, but actually your city was full of liberal men who thought you were fascists. And that's not how you identify.
Right. It's funny because I think she's surrounded by liberal men, but she's also surrounded by the smaller subsect of MAGA men who have come to town for the jobs in the government. And I think the thing about MAGA is that they're not actually all Christian conservatives. Some of them are Christian conservatives, and then the others are power hungry, like ethically flexible political opportunists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's not someone who enjoys going to church genuinely, and and it definitely doesn't mean that they're fit or whatever. So I don't know, Christian, what do you think?
I have this sort of theory of MAGA, at least in the second term, is that it's sort of this unholy jock nerd alliance that is, we kind of grew up thinking, it was always jocks versus nerds, when really, there was a kind of a trio. It was jocks, nerds, and like artsy kids, and really the jocks and the nerds, like the nerds were always the swing group. To me, it was always the jocks versus the artsy kids, and the nerds could kind of go either way, and depending on who was more accepting to them. And so there's a lot of that, even for all the sort of alpha male, I only eat beef and I, lift all the time. There's also a lot of that sort of nerd reductivism in terms of like, I remember Arthur Chu wrote an article once around the time of Gamergate called "Your Princess is Not in This Castle." And he basically was saying that like a lot of gamer types, they look at romance as if like, I have done A, B, C, D, and E, therefore you owe me love and sex and all of those things because I have passed all of the levels, which is not the way human emotions generally work with most adjusted adults. And I think that there is a lot of that energy of these guys, these MAGA dudes, who is like, wait a second, I'm a big deal now. I'm in power. I am running shit. Therefore, I am owed love. I am owed the hot chick that I have grown up believing that I would get if I achieved this level of status and power. And that's not the way human emotions work, whether you're liberal or conservative. And like you were saying, I don't think a lot of that Christian stuff, it's a uniform. It's a team name. It has nothing to do with your actual values or the way you actually conduct your life. It's literally just, I kind of have this thing I've been saying is like, most quote unquote like MAGA Christians care about Jesus Christ to the same extent that a football fan from Minnesota cares about actual Vikings. Do you know what I mean? It's literally just the name of the team and nothing more. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think so like a woman like this is dealing with this disappointment that the team uniform doesn't match her idea of what it should match. And I also thought it was funny how much she wanted these people to be masculine. This one woman that they kind of described throughout the article. The other thing is that the matchmakers in town talked about this change in the last 9-10 months. How long has it been? 11 months. Where liberal women who used to be wallflowers, like they were open to dating anyone, it didn't really matter. They now kind of say MAGA need not apply. Like basically they definitely don't want to have anything to do with that. Whereas before they were like, yeah, it was sort of like the James Carville, Mary Matlin, like there were a lot more of those out there, of those couplings. And now some of them are just like, oh, I'm not even willing to like go on one date with them.
Which is the animating rage that fuels so much of MAGA. It's like, how dare you? How dare you turn me down just because I'm a piece of shit? How dare you not date me just because I'm a horrible human being? Like,
right.
Which I think makes the kind of nerd jock analogy, comparison really makes sense, because there is a streak I remember among and I was probably also, I was, I think, the artsy academic type. So that was a different category maybe. But there was like a nerdy boy type who they were kind of like socially shunned, but I think they just they wished they could be jocks. And that was the difference between the artists and those guys, is that the artists didn't wish to be jocks.
Yes.
They wished to like just live in a different society altogether.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
obviously, it's like we're using I'm using high school terms, which is all. But I think as a general overlay on things, I think that when Obama came to power, the sort of nerd back when Silicon Valley was thought of as being like liberal coded, a lot of that sort of energy worked to the Democrats' benefit, and then is now shifted. And I think a lot of that is the YouTube wormholes and the podcast wormholes that people fall into, where they become anti-socialized. I think there's a certain kind of person that can be anti-socialized more easily than other people.
And also during that time, I feel like the Obama's first term into the second term, I made a movie called Nerdcore Rising about nerds who rap. And that movie, it opened in theaters. It went onto Netflix. Like, it did well. And I think part of the reason it did well is it was riding on this, like, the nerds are now in charge and it's great. And look at how, gentle and delightful they are and how smart. And it is interesting that,
and they still weren't getting laid. And that's why they went MAGA. That's what I'm saying. I really
Guys,
think
went
that
to plenty of gaming conferences, and I believe that many people were getting laid.
I bet it was. I think it was working out. I bet it was.
Yeah.
But I think not for your average, just run of the mill anime fan.
You had to get deep into it. You had to go to the conference.
Yes.
Yeah, you had to go to a conference.
If you're watching in your bedroom, it's probably not going to work out.
You're not
But if
gonna
you go to
get
the
laid.
conference, and maybe if you get dressed up in a costume, then it might work out
for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Dating is hard.
Dating is hard.
This is
And
my
it's-
big takeaway from the whole conversation. Dating is really tricky. And you know what? Marriage and parenting is its own thing, but I'm very grateful to be where I am.
and not having to date.
Tricky to date.
Yeah, it's tricky.
You could go my route and not be dating and not raising children. That's
there you
always an
go.
option. So.
Which is
That's an
another.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's the end of the show. My God, what a fantastic conversation I had with the two of you. I would love for people of Fake the Nation to follow all the wonderful things that you do. Tim Manley, where do they do that?
Yes, I am on Instagram. It is my name twice, at Tim Manley. That's me on Instagram. And then next year, I have this YA novel coming out, my first novel ever, called My Own Kind of Person. Not available to pre-order yet, but I don't know. Just keep Googling it like every day and see what happens.
Just every day, just do that.
Yeah, try it.
Or follow Tim Manley on Instagram, and I'm sure he will find it within himself to make an announcement.
I have a feeling I'll mention it. I have a feeling it'll come up.
Christian Finnegan, where do they find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky for this may be the only one of the few pods where that might actually get me some traction. I am on Instagram. I don't really do a whole lot with it. But I think I'm at Christ Finnegan on Instagram. I think I'm Christian Finnegan on Blue Sky. My newsletter is newmusicforolds.substack.com. I am planning on getting off Substack at some point, but I'm lazy and old. But you can just Google New Music for Olds, and
Wait,
and I do stand up.
Did Substack get Me Too'd or something? Why would you get off
it's
Substack?
a lot of the Nazi, a lot of the sort of right wing, podcast. I'm sorry, Substackers have been sort of interviewed by like the founders of Substack and sort of featured in their newsletters and things like that. The Richard Hanania types and the Curtis Yarvins of the world and so there has been sort of a groundswell of people being like, why are we on this platform that is sort of platforming Nazis? Everybody has to find the level where they're comfortable with, like how much fascism enabling am I willing to do?
Is Substack how Barry Weiss got to lead CBS? Was that Substack that she did?
Probably as much as any other one
maybe.
thing. Yeah, I mean that the Substack ecosystem, which it seems to reward.
Which is not great. It's yeah. That
seems to
those
reward
voices,
certain
which
kinds
is interesting.
of people.
There's so many things out there to like be indignant about.
I know, that's what I'm saying. You have to
I'm just going to
prioritize
go ahead
your
and
rage.
add Substack to the list. Folks, you know where to find me in all the things I do, but I wanted to mention I'm going to be in Costa Mesa, Orange County, California, on next Thursday for Wait, Don't Tell Me taping in Costa Mesa. Come out. It's a sort of a homecoming. I am a creature of Southern California, so come out. My parents will be in the audience if you want to just take a gander at those two. This is your chance to come see a live taping of Wait, Don't Tell Me and my parents all at the same time. Otherwise, I also, my newest piece for Progressive Magazine just came out. It's all about corruption. So go ahead and check out my column in Progressive Magazine. The column is called Hemming and Hawing. And I've written very, very, very many editions of this column. So, there's a lot for you to read there. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Rob Heath. Thank you to Gaby Alter, who wrote our theme music. You can email us at fakethenation@gmail.com. You can support us at patreon.com/Negin Farsad, and we will be back in your earballs next week.